The Twisted Lens, Episode 5. The Olympic Games are dead. When the Olympics actually do die for the second time, well, a little bit more on that later, it will be me and others like me that cause it. But why, you ask? Nearly everyone loves the Olympics. I mean, come on. The Games stand alone as the pinnacle of sporting excellence, and more importantly, perhaps the culmination of all that is socially right in the world today. For 2 weeks, every 2 years, an armistice of sorts is struck. A symbolic flame is lit, and athletes, well, from around the world, they come together in peace. It's heartwarming, and it's quite amazing. My home has been touched by the Olympics, and we are die-hard fans on so many levels, and yet the Games are doomed. We may have to twist the lens to see the Olympic Games in a whole new way. Here's the thing. To host the Games costs billions of dollars, and without sponsors, at least to raise millions, they just can't happen. And sponsors only sponsor if viewers watch the events, and more importantly, if they watch the commercials. Well, I claim to enjoy the Games, yet I haven't honestly watched a single moment of cross-country skiing since the last Olympics. Not a second of team relay speed skating, and I certainly have never recorded an episode of Nordic combined, whatever that is. So why, sandwiched between 8 or 10 commercials for every 5 or 6 minutes of live coverage, would I sit and endure such a thing? Well, the truth is, I wouldn't, and I didn't. Consider, too, the unintended consequences of a million channels. TV on demand, streaming, simplified recording, and lightning-fast internet. They have all conspired to destroy all but the very best live programming. Now, normally, that's a good thing, but in this case, not so much. And it gets worse. If viewers don't see athletes, quite frankly, that look like them, they turn the channel. It's an old reference. With the Winter Games in particular, diversity, well, it's not a thing, and that hurts ratings on a global scale. Beijing is now infamous for the lowest viewership in modern history, surpassing even the recent Tokyo affair for apathy. The average viewer will only watch 3 or 4 hours during the entirety of the Games. And the math is simple. Fewer viewers means, well, fewer dollars and no Olympics. That's the whole story, really. It's not about ski jumping or the biathlon or amateur hockey or even curling. The Games are about money. On top, add a shrinking list of countries that can afford the Games, and even fewer, quite frankly, that deserve such an honor because of perhaps atrocious human rights records. And the whole thing no longer makes any sense. It really doesn't. The ancient Olympic Games, well, they died the first time around 349 AD when Roman Emperor Theo I, well, he outlawed the pagan celebrations and the military-style competitions like spear throwing and, of course, running far and fast to deliver messages. Check out the story of the marathon. It is actually quite cool. So, the Games didn't happen again for nearly 1,500 years in Athens in 1896. Now, that's a bit of a gap, but consider that, relatively speaking, very little happened in 1,500 years with respect to viewership. There was limited radio coverage in those days and certainly no TV in the 1800s. So if you weren't at the Games in person in 1896, it wasn't much different than not being there in 394 AD. Now certainly that's not the case anymore. When the Olympics end this time, it will be to retool and reimagine, as they did in 1896, to discard the events that viewers, quite frankly, don't want to watch. You've got to streamline the viewing platforms and reduce the number of venues and, of course, the overall costs. And when the Games reemerge, and they will, it will be with all the glory and hope for humanity that founded the modern Games in the first place. Let's keep politics out, sporting excellence in, and come together in a way that Visa and Coca-Cola would want us to. That is my Olympic dream. Of course, if you enjoyed this, please pass it on.